Hi, welcome to the fourth part of the discrimination in the labor market lecture of the gender economics course, which is a course where PM's economics school is introduced. This lecture series is prepared for the Middlesex University Northern Cyprus campus, and in this part basically we will start looking to the Blau, Winkler and Faber's article, which consists of three parts, which is actually the same article, which same from, not article actually, it's a book chapter, and basically this book chapter is from the same book we have seen in the previous part on the where we have looked to the human capital as possible factor explaining the labor market status of the woman. Now we will look to the discrimination as possible factor. When we are aiming to basically measure or try to understand whether we have discrimination or not, the first method which is used is called statistical method. There are different actually versions of this method. Here I will introduce you to the basic logic of the model. And different versions have same model, but same logic, but slightly more complex version of it. Let me show you. So when you look, when you find the wage gap, basically, in wage gap, basically, and test the factors that are affecting the wage gap, you might test several different factors. One might be educational attainment, which might explain part of the wage gap, which could explain part of the wage gap. Labor force experience, race might explain. Here, of course, we are talking about the gender wage gap, and I mean, we look the effect of race in the gender wage gap, but that basically means that, I mean, maybe more black or Hispanic women, I mean, the people, the race, from the races that are more discriminated, maybe labor force participation of women in those, for those races are higher, maybe because because the income of the male counterparts in those members of those races are too low, so more will need to work, and maybe that is one reason why, I mean, you have disproportionately more black people in the female labor force. Women might be earning less statistically, so race could be in that case a factor. Occupations could be a factor. Women might maybe be choosing, and that would be our question, whether they are choosing. Women might be choosing to work in the occupations that are making them earn less. Women might be working in the industries that are making them earn less. Industries are actually basic sectors they are using. Occupations are more like the jobs they take inside of those sectors, and in many ways, actually, in some cases, the industry and occupation can overlap, but in some cases, they might also remain separate from each other. I mean, in the same industry, you could have different occupations and same occupation in different industries. That's also possible. Union status is basically one thing. Union workers usually, I mean, from the same occupations, usually earn more. And then you have an unexplained part. Well, since we don't have any single indicator of discrimination, since we cannot say, okay, this workplace, the women are discriminated, and in this place they are not, in most cases at least, we have some opportunities to do that, but in most cases not. Basically, this methodology assumes the unexplained part of the wage differences is basically the discrimination. An alternative method actually looks to the returns to the human capital, And if for women return to the human capital investment is less, that's also considered as discrimination. This method can be criticized in several ways, but before we go to the critiques, let's look to the data. This is for United States 1998, so basically it might have changed, and you might look for more recent papers. But just let's look to the case for 1998. That's also interesting. So we see educational attainment. In case of educational attainment, we have wage differential was 20 times 3, which means if women were earning around $80, men were earning $100. And when we look to the education attainment, actually we have a negative sign, which means women have a higher level of education but earn less. So actually, when we just look to the education, women should be earn more, not less. But when we have labor force, that explains 10% of it. But now we have 106% to explain, because this first term is minus. Labor force experience is 10%. Race is 2%. Occupational category and industry account of most of the explanation, around 49%, almost 50% of it. 3.5% is the union status, and the unionization in the United States for males even is very low, so that's understandable because of that reason. In Europe, maybe unions might be more important, for example, to explain wage gap. And then we have an unexplained part, which is 41%. So that 41% of the wage gap might be as a result of the discrimination. Now, how can we look to this? I mean, to what extent this is accurate? First, I mean, we are not measuring the discrimination directly. That is a problem. So whether this unexplained part is just a result of discrimination or other factors, like the choices of the woman, of more flexible, I mean, you might say shorter work times, but that could also be tested. But even if it is not shorter, maybe it is more flexible. I mean, they are more able to take their breaks at the times they want. Maybe they can shift hours, and maybe the work doesn't need that much of concentration, and women might need that less concentration because they might need to have they might have more duties to do inside of the household. So basically, this is one critique, and according to this critique, maybe this 41% of 20% wage differential is an overestimation. And you can see it at the beginning of the video. With the video at the beginning, basically, they actually use these arguments. Well, the other critique could be actually all those other factors that are supposedly not discrimination. Industry category, occupational category, where women work, the industry is women work, where the occupations women work. The fact that they don't have that much, that experience might be maybe because they are not hired, maybe also because of the family responsibilities. Of course, that you can have two different things. But because the fact that they are not part of the unions, all of these categories, I mean, occupation, industry, union status, and to some extent maybe labor experience, we might still have discrimination playing a part. So, in fact, the role of discrimination might be very well be underestimated in this case. So, these are the critiques to this method. What are the alternative methods? Well, there are different. One case is actually looking to the wage gap. Well, here actually we are assuming, of course, education. When we talk about education, for example, we might be thinking that people who are getting the education from different schools might not be equal to each other. So it is possible to look to the graduates of the same university and same departments. And when you look that, you still see, and you see here details, and those details are actually small details, but you still see in the research that is done on that here. Which university was that? Recent college graduates, narrow different grade point. Well, this is Harvard graduates, basically. In the Harvard graduates case, for example, you have a substantial unexplained wage gap, 30%. Even if you consider educational performance, GPA, SAT, and timeout, the experience into account, and the occupation also, where they work, in the job which they take, you have a 30% unexplained gap, which means, you have male engineer, female engineer work exact the same time, and at exact the same score, but still you have a 30% unexplained gap. You also have an explained gap, by the way. Certain things are explained by these factors. Similarly, people have looked to the different CVs, CVs with similarities, and we will see how this is done. Not for the gender case, but the race case. But the main thing is you make sure the CVs that are sent to the employers have same characteristics. And how do you make sure of that is a big question. You will see that. And there you can see, women might be less likely to be employed than men when you do that. And the third article is exactly on this, so I'm skipping the details in the Lefebvre article. And then you have marginal productivity case. Marginal productivity case is in jobs where you can directly measure marginal productivity, and there also let's look to the exact number, which means basically you just measure how much women are contributing to the production than men, where actually production is basically a peaceful production, and quality might be not that much important, maybe. And there, men are more productive than women, for example, in manufacturing sector, but still, this doesn't explain the full wage gap, according to the study. Of course, you might say, well, men are more productive. This might create a disproportionate increase in wages compared with the just difference in productivity. Maybe it might be the case. So just the fact that men are more productive in manufacturing might be telling something still. The third thing is lawsuits. Actually, there are, as you will see, basically some laws against this discrimination, and there were suits against these suits which were it is claimed that certain companies have broken these laws, and basically and money paid to the people, to the woman, by the companies as settlements or court cases. Settlements basically means the company says, okay, leave the suit, but we will pay you this amount of money if you leave the suit. And sometimes that money might be very close to the money the woman might get from the court, because the company might be willing to protect its status, basically. And you can see some examples of that type of lawsuits. So these are different ways to explain the wage gap. Well, now we have two other things. We have occupational segregation, and we have the case of glass ceiling. And these are specific type of discrimination, but also related to the wage gap and wage gap. So we will look to those ones in the next part. See you in the next part.